So this is a blended learning option for the high school. I'm going to share my screen and post the presentation, which you can also find on the high school website. Okay, so everybody should see a shared screen now. And as I said, we're going through the Owen J. Roberts blended learning model for the school year 2020 and 21. There are several models that we've looked at and that are possible for the school year. Obviously, we would all love to be back in school without any restrictions in the traditional model 5 days a week. But at this point, that doesn't look like it's possible, although the school board will be discussing that and voting on a model tonight. The blended model, which is what we'll be discussing today, operates slightly differently than that and breaks students up into two cohorts, which I will discuss. And then the Owen J. Roberts Cyber Academy is a separate entity. It is operating whether the blended model or the traditional model operates. You can sign your student up for the Cyber Academy. Mrs. Slade will be doing a presentation again today on the Cyber Academy, and that will start at 1 o'clock today. So here's our guiding principles for this particular blended option. Overall, and this goes for all of our models, we want students to be able to have access to high quality education that's consistent with our current program of studies. So in a normal year, we have a pretty robust program of studies at the high school. We want students to have access to that no matter what option they're in. So our full program of studies is available for the blended option. We also want students to be able to access any specialized services that they're used to accessing. That includes specifically designed instruction, school counseling, food services, Roberts Assistance Program, all those things. We want students to have an opportunity for one-to-one instruction and have access to their teachers, as well as be able to learn independently. We have one-to-one instruction built into this model, as well as teacher office hours, and we'll be discussing that in a few moments. Addressing the social and emotional component of a student is important, and again, providing access to teachers on a daily basis will help to do that, as well as providing access to some of the services that we talked about earlier. This program will follow a set schedule, so there's some routine for the students to follow, and that also addresses social and emotional component of student learning and well-being. Educational equity, we are addressing that by, again, allowing our students to have access to our full program of studies for this model. Students' schedules were worked out throughout the spring, and student schedules were issued in the early summer. Those are the student schedules that will be followed. Students will not be put in different classes for a blended option versus any other option. The schedules that the students have now are the schedules that they will be following, and we'll discuss how that looks during a normal work week in the blended model in just a minute. And finally, the blended model will contain time for teachers to continue to develop the educational tools that they started developing and we're working on for remote instruction in the springtime. Students, we know, will be much better served when our teachers are well prepared, which they typically are, and we want them to have time to prepare as we are learning new teaching techniques and new tools. So here's an overview of the blended plan, and then the next slide will go into a schedule. Students will attend live for 2 days. They'll be virtual and synchronous for 2 additional days, and then have 1 independent learning day for 5 days of learning. So the students will essentially be broken into 2 groups, 1 cohort coming in Monday, Tuesday, another cohort coming in Thursday, Friday, and then that middle day will be an independent learning day, time for teacher office hours, time for one-to-one or small group instruction, things like that. Students will attend classes in reduced numbers to provide for physical distancing arrangements, and again, they'll be following their current schedule. So a student will show up to their first period class at 7:30 in the morning and attend with all the students that are in their class with their cohort, if they're in there Monday, Tuesday, and the students that are the Thursday, Friday cohort will be showing up virtually via computer. These will be smaller groups that are actually in the room, so it allows us to physically distance. Use of technology in the classroom, including cameras and additional dedicated computers, will allow us to have the students connect remotely and have the teacher be able to interact with those students during the actual class period, whether they're in the class or whether they're connecting from home. Again, students will maintain the same schedule for their classes, and the students that are home are following that schedule as well. This model kind of allows for the maximum teacher connections. So again, the students that are in the class have that connection, the students that are home have that connection. Teachers will manage their classes as they see fit in terms of allowing the students that are home to raise their hand, ask questions, much like a teacher would manage their class on a day-to-day basis. They just have that added component of having students at home. So students may be, for example, muted for a while there's direct instruction to cut down on noise, and then the teacher may activate students to ask questions and engage. But the main point being, students will be in with the rest of their class, whether they're home or live in the classroom. Generally, we're going to try to break this up in alphabetical groups. It's going to be roughly A to K and K to and L to Z. But if those numbers don't work out to a 50-50 split where we can maintain physical distancing, we'll make adjustments as we get closer to the beginning of the school year. So here's a look at the blended plan schedule, a weekly schedule, generalized Monday through Friday of a typical week. So you'll have group A and C in on Monday and Tuesday, periods 1 through 7. Group A is that first cohort, A to K. Group C, as you can see, is scheduled, but will be scheduled both days there, or both cohorts. And those are students that have specialized learning plans or 504s, and they're going to be given the option to be attending on all 4 of those days to fulfill the objectives of those plans. So Monday and Tuesday, you would have group A and C in, and then they would be learning synchronously, remotely on Thursday and Friday. The emphasis is when the students are out of school, they are still checking in to their period on time, learning synchronously with the other cohort that's live in the classroom. The lessons will not repeat, so the Monday, Tuesday cohort will be learning, and they'll continue to learn Thursday, Friday remotely. So there's no repetition in the lesson, we move on. And in this way, we can cover the entire curriculum for the full year. That Wednesday is a day that's set aside for office hours, student asynchronous and independent learning, and any kind of individualized instruction that students might need. Although our students will have access to our teachers at least 2 days a week in person, as they are working remotely, there may be additional questions that come up, or if a student misses class for a health reason, they will have access to teachers on that Wednesday during teacher office hours or for individualized instruction as needed. This is a typical week as it would roll out, and the reason that I'm putting this slide forward is so that we can kind of see how the days line up. We have days of the week, obviously, and that's how the cohorts are going to come in, Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday, Friday. But in the high school, we also have days 1 through 5 that go on chronologically, and we do that so that students don't disproportionately miss a class where they might only have that class 2 days a week versus 5 days a week, or 1 day a week versus 5 days a week. So we will start off with day 1, and each cohort live day will be a day 1 through 5. So for example, if we're starting a Monday on day 4, Tuesday is day 5, Wednesday we do not assign a day to, day 1 will be on Thursday, day 2 will be on Friday. In any 5-week period, as we roll through this schedule, students will attend each day of each class 2 times through that rolling, actually 4 times rolling through that. So this is in an effort to make sure students do not disproportionately miss a class that's scheduled only 1 or 2 times a week, as opposed to the 5-day scheduled class. Last year was the first time we rolled this out, and it worked very well for lab classes and phys ed and things like that. Support for teachers during this new model. We do have a teacher on assignment for educational technology. That's a full-time position. That person is John Yoder, and he's working right now, helping to help us develop both student orientation to Canvas and to Chromebooks, as well as professional development that teachers are going to need for some new instructional practices, new software, and new technology tools that we're going to be implementing in the classroom. Teachers are going to be using cameras in each room. Those lessons will be live via the cameras. They'll also be recorded so that if a student misses a class, they can access that lesson starting later in that day. And that lesson would be accessible for a short period of time through Canvas, which is our learning management system. We'll be using Google Meet as the platform to connect from home. And we do have a number of supplemental software programs that teachers used last year very successfully during the closure, and will be continuing to use this year. As we have new students coming in each year, especially our 9th graders, we will be putting together a 9th grade orientation. There is already a Canvas course specifically designed for the new students to learn how to navigate through Canvas, and we'll be rolling that out to our English department for 9th graders. Each teacher will have an additional Chromebook or desktop in their classroom. This is dedicated to the camera so that the teacher still has their own computer to use for the instructional needs that they have. Cameras will be either mounted or portable, depending on class needs. Some classes which have a high level of demonstration or have multiple areas, like a lab area, such as horticulture, would need to move a camera to another area so that students at home can adequately see what's going on in the classroom. I mentioned the teacher on assignment previously, and we do have, of course, our technology department, which is spearheading getting all of our hardware and software in for us and making sure that we're up and running for the beginning of the year relative to all the new technology that we're going to be using. Okay. We did anticipate a few questions when we put this presentation together, so I'll walk through those now. And then hopefully, as you've been listening and have questions, you've been entering those questions into the chat. If you have not, please feel free to do that. And what Dr. Early and I will do in a few moments after we get through the frequently asked questions is go through and try to consolidate like questions and make sure we answer you. If we don't, feel free to pop another question in the chat there, and we'll give you a way to contact us also at the end if we don't answer your questions. Big question about activities and sports. Will those still be operating in the blended model? Sports and activities will be operating unless we're mandated not to have those in some way. So under the blended model, we're assuming that we'll be allowed to be in the building both during school and after school. So sports and activities will be running. What that will look like, we'll update you closer to start of school, but definitely looking to have a robust activities program this year as long as we're allowed to meet. Is there an option to go to Cyber Academy later if we decide that is best? So this is a question we got a lot yesterday. If a student is let's say, the blended option is the option that we're going forward with at the start of school, and a student decides 4 or 5 weeks in that they're really liking the virtual learning from home and they just want to do the Cyber Academy. Cyber Academy is going to follow the same schedule, and there will be the ability for that student to register for that at some time in the future. What we would like to avoid is students just popping from one model to the other. We'd like them to, we understand if a student switches from time to time and we want to do what's best for each student, but we don't want an open door where we're just switching in and out throughout the year. Will Canvas be easier to navigate? We are in the process of standardizing a template for Canvas. We heard last year from parents and from students that Canvas pages tended to look different for different teachers as they were personalized. That can be good and bad, but parents especially would like to log on to Canvas, and if they're looking at their students, 7 classes, or they have 2 or 3 students, they would like to be able to navigate in a similar fashion through Canvas. So we're working on a standardization template so that it looks and feels the same to both a student and a parent user. How will the Cyber Academy work with TCHS? Mrs. Slade will address that, but we'll say that we will have transportation for TCHS, both for the blended and the cyber model. The other virtual open houses are posted on the website. As I mentioned, we'll have 2 next week for cyber and 2 next week for blended as well. And Caroline Slade and Mr. Hankel will be presenting the cyber option at 1 o'clock today, here right after us. Question about how this works if we end up doing a remote model at some point, if we're mandated or elect to be in a remote mode. We are set up to move right into that with cameras in the classroom and the virtual tools that we have. The cameras are portable if they're needed to go home with the teacher, to teach from home if we're not allowed to be in the building. So one of the benefits of using this blended model with cameras and a portion of remote learning built into it is that it's an easy transition, both for moving to a remote model if we have to, or if a student needs to be out for a period of time, either to quarantine or because they're sick. They can still be connected. The schedule will look somewhat similar. They'll be attending their same classes, periods 1 through 7, and that schedule will look the same. There may be different amounts of synchronous and asynchronous learning in that model, though. We're working on attendance. That's the next question. Students will be required to attend, and for the blended model, if you have a 7:30 class, whether you're there in person or whether you are in the cohort that's logging on from home on that day, you will be expected to be there and attendance will be taken. If you are sick, just like during the normal school year, you would need to be called in sick, and we would use the normal attendance procedures for that. There will be some additional flexibility with attendance simply because we do expect students to possibly be sick or quarantined, but still want to attend school. And so if you're at home and sick and still attend virtually, you would be counted as present. Question of if all restrictions are lifted, will blended learning continue? I think we all have a goal of getting back to normal. And if all restrictions are lifted and we can be back in the building 5 days a week with no restrictions, I believe that's what we're going to be doing. And that's the school board decision, but I think everybody, that's their end goal, is to have the coronavirus behind us and be back to life as normal as possible. So that's the end of the frequently asked questions that we have. We did have a bunch of questions yesterday, and I'm sure you have some. So right now I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to see if I can see the comments, which I can't. So that means Dr. Early can see them, and he is going to activate his camera. I'm going to mute myself, and he'll start answering some questions for you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sean Early. Some questions Mr. Richardson did answer, but I'll repeat some of these for those that went through the chat. We will be taking attendance first period, the 4 days that the students are either in school or at home, the 2 in school and the 2 at home. The teacher first period will take attendance as normal. We are working out a plan for how to address students coming second period. So we will get more information out about that. 9th graders, we plan on getting their Chromebooks out the second week in August. And if you already have one from 8th grade, you don't need to update that. We do have a question. Our current 9th graders There is a question about, will the teachers be staying at home if we go virtually? That has not been decided yet. I think a lot of those questions may be answered at the school board meeting tonight. So you may want to tune into that. Question about labs. Can you really do labs? In the blended model, definitely we'll be able to do labs. When the students come in on Monday or Tuesday, they're actually going to be doing the labs. The students at home may be preparing for the labs or working ahead, but when they come in on Thursday and Friday, they'll do the lab at that time. If we go completely virtual, labs are going to be a little bit different. Labs will be virtual. The science teachers are working with Dr. Lehman, coming up with ways to do labs virtually. There's a lot of great things out there where you could do labs. You can dissect a frog virtually. Probably smells a lot better. Masks are supposed to be worn on the bus and in school. It will be mandatory. Everyone is supposed to be wearing a mask. We will be working on, last year, we piloted the parents' Canvas use. So coming up in the spring, or coming up in mid-August, we will be trying to get the parents trained on how to use Canvas. That will come mid-August. How are we going to get 180 days in? The governor, the Pennsylvania Department of Education has waived that requirement of 180 days. But we will be expecting the students on that Wednesday to be doing some type of work. The teachers may assign them, will be assigning them some work on Wednesdays to do at home. IB and AP programs, they should be right on, they're gonna be getting school 4 days a week. They're gonna be in for 2 days. The AP kids, or all the kids, are gonna be home in virtually 2 days a week. So, a lot of the independent work is involved with AP and IB classes. So I'm gonna mute, and then Mr. Richardson will talk a little more.
Yeah, as Dr. Early said, AP and IB classes will continue on. And last year, we had modified AP tests. I don't imagine we'll have that this year. But one of the tools that the AP implemented last year was AP Classroom, which allows a more robust interaction with some of the content by students online. And teachers can assign different guided practice and practice tests and things like that, and they get feedback directly into the teacher, and it helps them kind of guide where they are throughout the year. So that's a tool that was new last year and works really well with remote learning. So we're looking forward to exploring that a little bit more this year for AP. But both those sets of classes will march on, and we'll meet those curricular goals by test time this year.
We did have a question about busing. How will busing work? We were hoping, with half the population not being on the bus, another population going all cyber, more parents agreeing to drive, that busing will be fine. I know that the bus drivers are talking about protocol and when appropriate, keeping the windows open, students wearing masks on the bus, that the busing should be fine. What is the criteria in going to remote? The school board will be discussing that tonight. I would tune in tonight, 7:30, to see them discuss that part of how they're going to determine that. How will lunches be handled? Right now, once again, half the population here, some going completely cyber. The cafeteria can hold 140 students at a 6-foot spacing, which is allowed. We will use other areas such as rooms and LGI to get to that number of around 300 or $250 per lunch. So luncheon should be fine. The cafeteria personnel are only going to provide box lunches. So going through the lines will be quick. Make sure they're spaced out. Everyone's wearing a mask. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Richardson to answer the question about extracurricular activities.
The question is, will all extracurricular activities clubs need to occur virtually, or could distance in person be an option? Yeah, we will be looking at various options. We understand that, for example, if you have a cohort coming in on Monday, Tuesday, and another cohort coming in on Thursday, Friday, and a club runs on Tuesday, for example, that could be exclusionary for the kids that are the Thursday, Friday kids. So we're going to work on ways to both have in-person and remote connections. We will have cameras in all the rooms, and our advisors here at the school will have access to that. So we will work on a plan to make clubs as inclusive as possible. There are some clubs that have pieces of them that tie into outside gatherings. They're going away to perform something, or they're going away to compete. We're not sure how that's going to shake out. That'll be determined organization by organization, and we'll keep those updates coming through the club advisors.
Okay, I have a question about physical education. How is that going to work? When the students are here and they have phys ed, they will participate. We are meeting with the phys ed department to go over the different activities that will work during these times. The students, we figured out this morning, actually, it'll take 5 weeks, but they will get 2 classes during those 5 weeks in school because of the days of the week. Typically, it's only twice a week, but it will take a 5-week cycle to get 2 days of phys ed in school. But there will be other activities. They are expected to come in and participate during school day when they're at home, which we're working on those different activities. It could be doing a log, doing an activity and keeping a log. What's the protocol for if someone does get COVID? If we do have a confirmed case, the district will shut down for 2 days. The Chester County Health Department will coordinate with us to notify those who came in contact and should quarantine longer. But we will be working with the Chester County Health Department during those 2 days of intense cleaning, and then notifying those people who need to be notified that need to quarantine based on class schedules. Question about the locker situation. We have decided that we're going to come up with a way. If you want a locker, we will give you a locker. Not many kids in high school do utilize lockers, but we're going to come up with a way at the high school where you notify Mrs. Painter. She's in charge of the lockers. She'll issue you a locker and make sure that you are at least 6 feet away from the next locker. So we're going to be working up with a plan for that. Question about the students in Group C, our kids, our students in special education or have special needs. They will be interacting as normal, as if when they're in school. If there are extenuating circumstances, we'll need to talk with that nurse and special education teacher. How many students are we expecting? I think right now, if everyone came in, we'd have about 1,750 to 1,800 students. So let's cut that in half right away, right down to 900. And we take 20% off that. We're looking at 720 students maybe coming into school every day. Is that estimate? Yeah. The question about independent on those Wednesdays, we do imagine that teachers will be assigning students to do independent work on those Wednesdays.
So regarding Wednesdays and asynchronous independent work, much like a regular school year, the teacher is going to set the pace for the class, and we have curricular goals to meet by the end of the year. So we're not requiring teachers to create assignments specifically for the Wednesday, just so kids have something to do, but we anticipate, like in a regular school year, school continues, there's long-term projects, short-term projects, chunked projects. There will be expectations for students to be continuing work, and they'll have access to teachers on Wednesday. So it may be that certain students have work to complete specifically on that day, but if there's long-term deadlines that students are working on, a teacher isn't going to assign a piece of work for Wednesday just to have a piece of work for Wednesday. They're going to keep those students moving and give them a schedule to keep them moving on the work that they're working on.
Do you have a question about what students in Group C and with their IEPs? We are basically expecting them to come in all 4 days. If they do not want to come in all 4 days, we are generating, I believe the special education department is generating a form where they can opt out on those other 2 days. But as of right now, we're thinking that if you have an IEP, you need specially designed instruction, that you will come in all 4 days. The day when kids are not in school, not including Wednesday, they're expected to follow along. They're expected to get up at 7:30, go to class, log on, go to class for the full day. With the masks, we're expecting students to wear their masks. We know that they're going to need breaks. We know they're going to have to take them off to eat for lunch. So each teacher is probably going to work a system out for breaks and how to take mask breaks. If they are 6 feet apart, they will be able to remove the masks and take breaks, but we will be encouraging them to keep the masks on at all times. Benefits of doing blended versus cyber academy. With the blended, you're gonna be seeing your friends, you're gonna be socializing with students. I think that's the main advantage, seeing your teachers in person. That is an advantage, socializing with other students and your teachers. Mr. Richardson, you want to talk about tests? Assessments?
So assessments will tend to look a little bit different this year. If you look across various districts that are going to different models right now, whether it's blended or virtual, one thing that everyone is realizing is that they have to level the playing field for assessments. So we're asking our teachers to take a look at assessments and offer a wider variety of assessments, whether they be project-based, some more writing types of assessments, and the actual written assessments that would be more like a traditional test, recognizing that students both in the classroom and taking those tests from home need to be advantaged in the same way. So they will be skewed towards open note tests, so the assessments themselves will need to be realigned so that they're still rigorous in that format. The AP did that last year for their online testing. All the AP tests were online. They were able to come up with a type of test that was open note, so the playing field was leveled for everybody, recognizing that students would have access, but also create an assessment that was rigorous in the time frame that they gave it. So that's our plan, is to modify assessments to level the playing field and make sure that they're varied enough so that everybody has the same opportunity to succeed with them.
We do have a question about how the high school and middle school are communicating, share best practices. The high school did increase Mr. Yoder, to 1.0 to help the high school work on their pedagogy for online learning. We use Canvas. Middle school, I believe, uses Google Classroom. So, but Mr. Brilla, who helps the middle school teachers, and Mr. Yoder are in contact, and we're working with the curriculum supervisors to make sure we have best practices. But Mr. Yoder at the high school has been working very hard already with some teachers, teacher leaders, to make sure our teachers are ready.
So I have a question about lunch in the cafeteria. Is eating in the cafeteria required? We do have the cafeteria set up at six foot spacing, as Dr. Early mentioned earlier, with the capacity of about 140. And we're looking at using other rooms for other groups of students to make sure we have our full capacity. So there will be other options for having lunch. How we're going to kind of arrange the students in those rooms is yet to be seen. But we have, for example, the LGI, we have 2 classrooms across the hall from the cafeteria that we're going to be using for lunches, as well as the cafeteria.
We have a question about hand sanitizing stations in the hallways. We already have them right now, and the district has ordered a lot more supplies, a lot more hand sanitizing stations, a lot more of the pumps. When they go into classrooms, we are going to be working on protocol. I would probably want to clean my own desk. Some people think you leave it clean before you leave. So we're working on, should we clean before, or the students clean after? Right now, protocol could be the teacher goes and sprays every desk, the kids wipe them out, and then throw the trash can and leave. So we're working on that protocol. Another question, the high school is going to just work with Canvas and other softwares. So the elementary schools they are using Accelerate. Middle school does use Google Classroom. Will we be taking temperatures? Right now, we're going to ask that the parents help us out in this situation, that the parents check their students before they come to school. If students are showing signs, we are definitely going to take them to the nurse's office and have them checked out. Students want to be checked out, they can go to the nurse's office and get checked out. So we'll be working through those, how we're going to do that more efficiently as we finish up the year, but we are going to ask that the parents help us sending their students to school when they're healthy. The protocol right now is if there is a confirmed case, it is a 2-day closing for deep cleaning. That is correct. Existing lockers, students are issued a locker every year. So we change the combinations of every locker over the summer. So students will get a new locker if they so choose, and we'll come up with a process for how they request those lockers. Right now, we haven't come up with a set way to stagger the bells. If we let kids out early, then they'll be waiting at the classroom, and then those kids are coming out. So we will, we're still looking at that staggered bell schedules and looking for best practices there. But right now, we haven't come up with a different bell schedule. We are going to eliminate, right now, we're thinking about eliminating the advisory, so it's one less pass in the class. We are looking at traffic patterns. We are looking for going up stairwells and down stairwells, and everyone going clockwise. We are looking at that. That could cause other issues, having kids walk further when they. So we're looking at the different traffic patterns. And if someone is tested positive, if you look at the health plan, that they need 2 negative tests before they can come back. They need 2 negative tests before they can come back. Dual enrollment, I think will go on as normal. There will be no busing on Wednesdays at this time that I'm aware of. If there are special cases, we'll take a look at that. there will be no busing at this time for students on Wednesdays. It'll just be Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Our class is going to be recorded. Yes, they will be recorded. So for example, a teacher teaches, we'll say 3 classes of algebra. Before that teacher leaves that day, they're going to post at least their best, if they have a best class, they're going to post the recording of their best algebra class. If they have a geometry class too, they're going to post their best geometry class. So before the teachers leave for the day, they will be posting their lesson. And it may be just, the instructional part, the part that they feel relevant. It won't be, I don't believe it'll be the whole class. What if my child wants to come in all 4 days and he does not have an IEP? At this point, we'll have to look at that at case-by-case basis. But we will, right now we're not doing that, but we can look at that at case-by-case basis if there is a specific need. The ventilation system, they are changing the hours of operation. Typically, they shut down at a certain time. They're expanding the hours of operation of the ventilation system. So when the kids come in, it's definitely going to be set of clean air. And at night, it's constantly going to be exchanging the air. So it's a pretty good system for that. Subs, yeah, we are a little bit worried about subs. So people may want to sign up with the Chester County IU right now. You probably take 3 days if you have a degree. You probably just go onto the Chester County IU and they could give you more information about becoming a sub. When we do close for the deep cleaning, if we do have a case, there will be learning. Everything will be synchronous. We will expect the teachers to teach at this point. Fire drills. Right now, we're technically supposed to have 1 fire drill a month, and if we're in school more than 5 days a month or 5 days in the month, you have to have a fire drill. As of now, we will pick a day. They take 15 minutes, and we probably will be unless I hear something else. Yeah, students will be given, if they are in Group C, they will be given an option not to only come in the 2 days. Do you have any questions, Mr.? I think I went through everyone. If I missed you, can you chat me or Mr. Richardson again? I don't know the type of air filters. Mike Shelgren will be able to, if you email Mike M. Shelgren, Shelgren, he can answer the questions about the types of filters, but there will be new ones. I've heard him talk before the students start. They will be changed on a regular basis. And yes, when the teachers, they will record their best lesson of the day per subject. So if they teach algebra 3 times, they're going to choose their best algebra class and post that at the end of the day. And then if they have 2 geometries, they're going to just post 1 of the geometry where the students will have access to the class. Will there be teachers who teach from home? That has yet to be determined. I think a lot of things will be talked about tonight at the school board meeting. So 7:30 tonight, go onto OJR website and you'll be able to see. They're going to make a decision tonight, I believe. About the bell schedule and giving them more time to pass, that is a difficult question. we want them in the hallways more? You know, so we really need to think, see what other schools are doing, because if everyone's going clockwise, and if you could, it could be a 1 minute walk if you went counterclockwise, but now you got to go 4 minutes. Is that worth it? And if we let kids out early to go to their next class, well, then they have to wait out in front of that class. So I think if everyone wears their masks, moves quickly, it might be the best bet. Up and down stairwells, I'm not 100% sold on that yet either, because kids could go right up the stairway, be right at his class. Now he's got to walk a whole, around the hallway, 360 or 270 degrees, go up the steps, and then go over, add in more time in the hallway. So that's a tough decision. We need to look at that. Question is, if a student is feeling sick, can they come in the other days that they were supposed to be virtually? At this point, we're going to keep them on their days. They can watch the lesson home virtually. They would need to call in sick as usual. But at this point, they would not be able to come in those other days. But there's always a case-by-case basis. Is there special needs, or is the first day of school changing? I guess the school board's going to vote on that tonight. If you go on to our school board on the website and go to the school board, there is a different calendar on the agenda to be voted on tonight. And the question about cyber versus blended, I think the question is, yes, doing the cyber does give you a little more flexibility, but you're expected to go on first period and watch the class. You're expected to go on second period and watch the class. You're not going to be able to socialize, with your students as much in person. But if you're not feeling well, you could go. We want the students to be in first period and second period as much as possible. But if you're not feeling well, you can't, and then you'll have to watch the video, talk to buddies later, and try to work through it that way. But it is a tough decision, and that's why we're giving you options at this point. And a lot of school districts around us are doing different things, and as times change, we have to be fluid and flexible and work together as a team. And the parents, they need to help in regards to checking their kids before they come to school. And we're going to need your help. And the board has been getting a lot of information from the Pennsylvania Department of Education. They're working with the Chester County Health Department, come up with the best and safest. The student safety is paramount, and the teacher safety. So we're going to be working hard, give your kids the best opportunity, be healthy and successful. And right now, the maximum days of absence is 10. I expect there's going to be a lot of flexibility with that for students, especially if they're doing their work, they're communicating with their teachers, that there will be a lot more flexibility, that the state has already said we don't have to do the full 180 days in person, but you're expected to do some work on that Wednesday to count for the 100 days or 180 days. Is it cyber instruction the same live teacher instruction as a blended? I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Richardson.
I don't see them coming up here, but so there's a question about cyber instruction. Is that synchronous? Is that the question? So our cyber instruction, and Mr. Slade will talk about this in a little bit, in the presentation that's coming up, is intended to follow along with whatever model we're using for the in-school piece. So if we're doing the blended model, the expectation is the students will be, that are cyber students, would be attending Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday synchronously with their class schedule periods 1 through 7. And that is the best way for them to get full access to their teacher, receive the same instruction that the students in school are getting, and that's really the main driver behind doing it this way, is so that we can have as many students on the same page with the same curriculum, getting the same, as close to the same experience as possible, whether they're in the blended model or the cyber model. And that cyber model would then follow along with whatever in-school model that we have. If we end up back in school 5 days a week at some point, then that cyber model would shift to 5 days of synchronous as well. Dr. Early already talked about the fact that we anticipate some students might be sick or not able to attend for one reason or another for a class here or there, or a day here or there, and that's the reason that using the cameras, we are posting lessons so that if there is a specific need for asynchronous learning, that can happen as well. But the main intent of both the blended model and the cyber model is to have a synchronous learning environment so that students have the maximum exposure to their teachers and access to their teachers, both so they can see the class live and also be interacting with their teachers and their peers. The question is the Cyber Academy for taught by OJ, our teachers. So yes, it's the same schedule, same teachers that are going to be teaching during the blended model. I think I kind of went through that, but yeah, they're attending the exact same schedule as they would be. So if a cyber student, for example, after 3 months decides we're doing the blended model at school, I'd like to be in school a couple days a week, I'm going to shift to that. There is no change in teacher, no change in periods. You just shift over once you get that squared away with school counseling. The last one I have.
I have a question about my child has an underlying medical condition, maybe like asthma or diabetes. What is the recommendation of the school or Chester County? I believe that's a total personal decision that you need to make as a family and maybe with your physician. I don't think we would recommend anything on that other than whatever your doctor, says. So I would definitely talk to your doctor about what they think is the best option for your child. Anybody else? I think we've answered everything. We'll give you another 30 seconds to chat another question.
And while we're waiting, we'll just thank you for attending today. If you have additional questions, I did post a couple emails in the chat box there for everybody to see. You can email anybody at the high school. Our emails are on the webpage. Mr. Hankel, Mrs. Slade, Dr. Early, or myself. I'll be happy to answer your questions. We will be posting this at some point. We did record today, and we'll be posting this on the website. So again, thank you for attending, and if there are not any other questions, we will go ahead and end the session. Dr. Early, any more questions?
I do not see any.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. And again, we know questions pop up, so don't hesitate to email us. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.